just went in and counted them. There's three sycamores and scraggly everything. Yeah, but I didn't see what the results of that. They didn't talk to it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is 5:30 p.m. The live stream has begun, and you may begin your meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, good afternoon, Council, members of SLT, and interested citizens this afternoon. I see we have quorum, so I call this public meeting under the Planning Act in session. And as we do with all town business, we will begin with a land recognition statement. And today, Councillor Olson will read the statement.
Thank you, Your Worship. We begin this meeting by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people.
Thank you, Councillor Olson. I now turn to the clerk.
Through Mr. Mayor, we will now begin with our opening remarks. So please allow Ms. LeGros a moment to share her screen. Public meeting under the Planning Act, Wednesday, April 10th at 5:30 p.m. The Town of Pelham is holding hybrid public meetings. A hybrid hearing involves a mixture of in-person and remote attendance and participation. Please note that no decisions have been made prior to this public meeting. The Planning Department will be providing a presentation regarding the subject applications. Public meetings under the Planning Act are formal meetings requiring decorum. This means that all comments are to be made through the chair. If you have pre-registered to speak virtually or will be participating tonight in person, you will be provided an opportunity to address the committee at the public portion of the meeting. Please note that if someone ahead of you has made the same comments that you wish to make, there is no need to repeat the same comment. And please keep all comments concise. If you're live streaming and wish to submit a comment live, please email clerks@pelham.ca. Inappropriate comments and behavior such as clapping will not be tolerated. If decorum is lost, the meeting may be recessed and persons asked to leave. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the planner responsible for the application in writing as soon as possible. Contact information will follow on the presentation. As well, we do have sign-in sheets at the front of the room. You may leave your contact information. Through you, Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to item 3, adoption of agenda. Okay. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik that the agenda be amended to include item 6.3.1. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. After viewing the agenda, does any councillor have any omissions or additions to make? Not seeing any. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Therefore, I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik that the agenda for the April 10th, 2024 public meeting under the Planning Special Meeting of Committee of the Whole be adopted as amended. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to item number 4, being disclosure of pecuniary interests.
Thank you. After viewing the agenda, is there any council member that have a disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item number 5, which is our first application this afternoon. I will now read the notice requirements into the record. Revision to the previously approved draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment, north side of Port Robinson Road, east of Station Street, being Summerside's Village draft plan of subdivision, file numbers 26T1902-2021 and AM-01-2024. Draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendments to permit the use of the property for 35 lots for single detached dwellings, 7 blocks for 14 semi-detached dwellings, 10 blocks for 60 street townhouses, and future roadways. The Planning Act requires under Section 34 and 51 that council must hold at least one public meeting for the purpose of informing the public in respect to the proposed applications. This meeting has been called to satisfy this request. Notice of this meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters of the subject property on March 15th, 2024. The notice provided information on the property and the proposed draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendments. In addition to providing information, we will also receive any comments which any member of the public may wish to offer. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the planner in writing as soon as possible. Contact information is available on the town's website and will be displayed on the last slide of the staff presentation to follow. If a person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the town of Pelham to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but they do not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the town of Pelham before the bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision. In closing, we stress that at this point, no decision has been made on the proposed amendments, and therefore any comments received will be considered by council. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the planner responsible for this application is Andrew Edwards.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Edwards, you have the floor.
Good evening, members of council and members of the public. Tonight's public meeting concerns applications for an amendment to a previously approved draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment for the draft approved subdivision known as Summersides Village. The property is located on the north side of Port Robinson Road, east of Station Street, outlined here in yellow. The surrounding land uses are varied with a mix of single detached and townhouse dwellings on Port Robinson Road, a mix of single detached and apartment dwellings on Station Street, vacant future development lands and townhouses to the north, and vacant future development lands and single detached dwellings to the east. For some context, council previously approved the original draft plan in May of 2022. The draft plan was comprised of 70 lots for single detached dwellings. In addition to the draft plan, there were associated applications for zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment to facilitate the development as proposed at that time. The revision that is subject to tonight's public meeting is comprised of a total of 109 units, including a mix of singles, semis, and townhouses. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment would rezone the lands from the R2 137 zone to site-specific residential 2 and residential multiple 1 zones. The zoning change would permit the use of the lots for single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, street townhouse dwellings, and accessory uses subject to special regulations. Pictured on the slide is the red line draft plan that was submitted with the application. It is comprised of 109 units and it is made up of 35 lots for single detached dwellings, which is shown here in yellow, 7 blocks containing 14 semi-detached dwellings, which is shown in the light orange color, 10 blocks containing 60 street townhouses, which is shown in the dark orange color in the center of the draft plan. In addition, there are 4 blocks for 0.3 meter reserves, 1 block for a daylighting triangle, and approximately 1 hectare for future roadways. The revision will add 39 additional units compared to the previously approved draft plan, including new unit types being the semi-detached and townhouse dwellings. Previously, the draft plan contemplated all single detached dwellings. The applicant has indicated the change is a result of changes in the market. For context, this slide shows the neighborhood plan the applicant submitted with the application. It shows development in the surrounding area and how they are proposed to connect with one another and the adjacent road network, being Port Robinson Road to the south and Summersides Boulevard to the north. The subject lands are outlined here in red. The provincial land use planning framework for the property includes being within a designated settlement area per the provincial policy statement. Settlement areas are intended to be the focus of new growth and new development and are to include a mix of uses, housing options, and densities that efficiently use land and infrastructure. Similarly, the property is in a delineated built-up area according to the growth plan. Intensification is generally encouraged in these areas, as well as a healthy mix of residential and employment land uses. According to the Niagara Region official plan, the property is within the urban built-up area. In line with provincial policy, the built-up area is intended to be the focus of residential and employment intensification and redevelopment. The region's official plan encourages a variety of housing types within urban communities and neighborhoods to serve a variety of people as they age through their life cycle. According to the town's official plan, the lands are located within the East Fonthill Secondary Plan area and are designated low-density residential and medium-density residential, with the majority of the site being within the low-density designation. Permitted uses in the low-density residential designation include single detached dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, and townhouses. Objectives of the secondary plan include, but are not limited to, ensuring that the community is developed with a compact urban form, creating a complete community, and to ensure that all new development is appropriately serviced with full urban water and sanitary services. Bylaw 4463 was approved by Council in June 2022. It rezoned the lands from the residential development and site-specific RM1 zone to a site-specific R2 zone that permitted the uses as proposed in the original draft plan of subdivision. The zoning bylaw amendment application now requests to rezone the lands to a site-specific R2 and a site-specific R1 zone to permit the proposed single-detached, semi-detached, and townhouse dwellings. A number of site-specific provisions are requested, which will be detailed in the following slides. The applicant is requesting to amend the zoning on a portion of the property to a site-specific residential 2 zone that would apply to both the single-detached and semi-detached units. There are 8 site-specific provisions requested for the site-specific R2 zone. The following would apply to the single-detached dwellings. A reduction in the frontage requirement to 10.9 meters from the required 12, to delete the requirement for a maximum front yard setback of 6 meters, a reduction in the minimum rear yard setback to 6 meters from the required 7.5, to delete the requirement for a maximum lot coverage of 50%. In addition, the following would apply to the semi-detached dwellings. To reduce the requirement for a maximum front yard setback of 6 meters, a reduction in the minimum rear yard to 6 meters from the required 7.5 meters, to delete the requirement for a maximum lot coverage of 50%, and lastly, a general provision is requested to permit unenclosed porches, balconies, steps, and patios to encroach within 2 meters of the front and exterior side lot lines and 4 meters of the rear lot line. In addition, the general provision would permit uncovered patios and decks within 1.2 meters of a rear or side lot line. The second site-specific zone requested for the property is a site-specific RM1 zone to permit the townhouse dwelling as currently proposed. There are 7 site-specific provisions requested that would apply to the townhouse units. They are as follows: a reduction to the frontage requirement of an end unit to 7.4 meters from the required 8, a reduction in the minimum lot area to 198 square meters from the required 230, to delete the requirement for a maximum front yard of 6 meters, a reduction in the minimum rear yard to 6 meters from the required 7.5, a reduction to the landscape strip where a lot abuts an R1, R2, or R3 zone to 1.2 meters from the required 1.5, to delete the requirement for a maximum lot coverage of 50%, and lastly, the same general provision is requested regarding encroachments as detailed for the site-specific R2 zone. Several comments have been received on the application from both external agencies and town departments, which are summarized here. Town planning had the following comments summarized as follow. Planning intends to include a maximum garage door width provision in the site-specific zoning. They indicated they are not supportive of the request to delete the maximum front yard setback or the maximum lot coverage provisions. They encouraged a variation of unit types between blocks. They indicated that there appears to be opportunity for more tree plantings on the streetscape plan. In addition, they commented on the requirement for a temporary emergency access until such times as the lands to the north are developed and the connection to Summersides is established. Town Public Works had the following comments. They required an updated servicing plan. They requested clarification on the capacity of the stormwater pipes. They indicated the owner will be responsible for payment of the front-ending contribution for the East Fawn Hill Stormwater Management System oversizing. Fire and bylaw commented the developer shall provide temporary emergency road access. The Niagara region offered no objection, subject to conditions, including updating some of the conditions in the subdivision agreement. Hydro One had no comments. Canada Post had no comments. Bell Canada included standard conditions of approval relating to easements for their utilities. Enbridge Gas had no objection, as well as the NPCA had no comments. 2 public comments were received following preparation of the staff report, so they are not included on the slides here. They're summarized as follows. Mary Tucker expressed concern with the changing character of the area, expressed concern with construction noise and activity and associated disruption to the surrounding area. She suggested limiting the height of the buildings and to avoid dark colors in the building designs. She expressed concern with congestion on Highway 20 and suggested that the town prohibit contractors or developers from leaving construction-related debris on site after a project is finished. The Bigley Area Group, on behalf of their client, an adjacent landowner, commented they have no objection to the applications and are in support of a variety of housing types. They requested that the town take a more active role in the creation of a development agreement with the landowners in the area to ensure the timely development of the remaining undeveloped areas. The following materials were submitted by the applicant along with the application forms: the red line draft plan of subdivision, a preliminary neighborhood plan, a preliminary parking plan, a preliminary streetscape plan, a priority lot map, a planning justification report, as well as a functional servicing report. All of the materials mentioned here are available for download on the Engaging Pelham webpage. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention this evening. Staff emphasized that no decisions or recommendations concerning this application will occur tonight. Staff will review the comments received and prepare a recommendation for council's consideration at a later date. If any member of the public wishes to receive notices regarding this application, please ensure that you have provided written comments, verbal comments tonight, or provide your contact information to the clerk as soon as possible. Planning staff are available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Andrews. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we do have the applicant for this file, Mrs. Jennifer Vida, with us, and she wishes to make verbal commentary.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Vida, you have the floor.
Sorry, you just turned it
Already
off.
on?
Yeah,
Okay,
perfect.
Here we
Thank you.
go. Thank you for the presentation. As outlined, the original plan that was draft approved included a lot of 45-foot single lots, which is no longer an affordable option. So the builder that we are currently working for would like to diversify the units within the subdivision, add in townhouses and semis and smaller lots as an option.
We can't hear you.
Sorry. The road pattern that we are proposing is exactly the same as the road pattern that's already been approved. And I guess I'm here tonight to just answer any questions. We are currently working with staff to resolve the comments that we have received for stormwater management and planning, and hopefully bring this forward with resolved comments for approval. Yes. Sorry, is that better? Yes. There we go. So any questions?
Okay, to the clerk.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, we can move to the public input portion prior to council questions or commentary. So for our public input, we do not have any pre-registered members of the public. However, you may wish to open to the floor if anyone has in-person comments this evening.
Okay, is there anyone present who would like to question either one of the presenters or comments on the development? Okay, not seeing any. Obviously, we realize the vast majority of the citizens here are for the second item that we're discussing here tonight. Thank you. We got to go back to council yet. We haven't got the camera. Now we will.
Yep.
Okay, so now that we see it, we have no one commenting on from the residents. I now open up to the council and.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, if we could just close the public portion before we move to council. I have checked the emails and we have received none up to this time, so it is 5:48 PM and you may now move to the council and give the input.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I see Councillor Eckert, you have indicated.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the people in the front row that didn't hear what the young lady was presenting, she basically just said that she's here to answer any questions tonight, that they've asked for the change in that subdivision because of affordability. So instead of the single-family dwelling homes, they want to put a mixture of homes in there because the market didn't support 7. Is that paraphrasing it pretty good? Okay, so we're all clear on what she said? Okay, thanks very much. That's all I wanted to say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Eckert. Do you have any questions to the presenter before I move on? Wait, okay, Councillor Olson, you indicated first.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, to the presenter. You know, this looks like a pretty drastic change in the number of units that we're going to have there. Now, in the objective, I guess, I understand that it's market change. Could you explain that, please, how that's going to work with, and I suppose it goes to affordability as the issue?
Yes, so from what we understand from the builder is these larger 45-foot lots with the $1 million homes are not selling like they used to with interest rates and a variety of other reasons. So they're looking to put in more compact, smaller homes, townhouses, semi-detached to meet that affordability point that the market's looking for right now.
Okay, thank you. Now, the couple of the objections, I get, or concerns, let's put it that way, of our planning staff is that, and suggestions was that all the units should be, there should be some variation in the style of the units. Is that a possibility to have?
In terms of architectural style?
Yeah, in terms of architectural, I don't pretend to know what it should look like, but the variation would probably be a desirable thing, I think, in an expanse like that.
Yeah, so in terms of variation, I think the planning staff was more talking about having the townhouses all together in one area and the singles in another area. And from what I understand from the builder is that's a tough market for them to integrate townhouses with singles. It's tough to sell them side by side, so that is the rationale for the site layout. But in terms of built form, whether or not they're going to be bungalows, 2 stories, that's to be determined. And we do have to adhere to the East Fonthill urban design guidelines in terms of materials, setbacks, and things like that. So we're hoping for an attractive community.
Okay, I think I took it the other way. I think the accepting the idea of the townhouses together, but I just didn't want it to look like some kind of a homogeneous group of barracks or something that we have down there. I'd like to see some variation to that. And my final question, Mr. Mayor, is the trees. What is there a landscape plan yet for the number of trees and things that are going to be planted there?
Yes, so we've provided a preliminary tree planting plan to show exactly where the trees can be planted, looking at constraints like on-street parking, utilities, things like that. So that's under review with planning staff as well, and we'll work together with them to come up with something that is acceptable to planning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Olson. Well, we usually go side to side. Councillor Kerr?
Thank you. Yeah, I ran some quick numbers. This is a 55% increase in the number of units from what was originally agreed to. I hear your comments about saying $1 million homes aren't selling. We all fall under that great, I call it probably one of the biggest things put out to deter people from, oh no, we need higher density because it will be cheaper. Marketplace is a marketplace. And what people are willing to pay are what people are willing to pay. Cramming more units in, if you run the numbers, generates higher gross sales numbers than fewer, more expensive homes. And the mathematics follow it. There's no, if I have 109 units at X that are at 75%, it's worth more than 70 units at 100%. Just run the numbers. So it's kind of, I agree with Councillor Olson. I guess my question is, I'm a little disappointed to see that the particular drawing basically created large tracts of identical buildings. That whole center area is basically one giant block apartment of sorts, rather than anything else. The other part was going to 109 units. If you average one vehicle, you've now increased your car numbers on the same roadways that you had previously by 55%. That's just the cars that are going to physically be there, assuming one per unit, on the same width of road, on the same length of road, on the same amount of pavement. I have a great challenge to see how that, with on-street parking, is going to work and be safe for emergency services and everything else. We have, as well as snow removal and the myriad of other things that our town has a tendency to pick up on. So I would rather have seen that the row housing be broken, interspersed, because ideally, having all of one unit by itself does not look as attractive as a change of a number of units over time in a particular area. It breaks the visibility. It allows things to be there. You may not get as many units in when you do it that way, but I'm still looking at homogeneous neighborhood is not really diverse. It's adding more people in a smaller area. I know we need housing. I know that's one of the crux of everything. But I do concur when I look at the setbacks that are, quote, to be deleted. I'm not in agreement with just saying it doesn't exist. There has to be something. When you say zero, that means people push everything to the maximum limit when they start to build, because they said, well, I'm not constrained by any rules because there were no numbers. I'd rather be seeing numbers attached to this, showing it. And my concern is the deletion of it is the way of increasing the number of units. So those are I guess that's my question is, why do you have to delete a setback? Would be to you directly. Why does that need to be deleted? Why can't a number be created that will show some degree of being the ability to look at how close will things really be?
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, I can definitely work with the builder to address those comments and hopefully come up with an alternate to deleting a provision in the zoning.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for those comments. Again, this is what this evening is about, to receive comments and take them back to the constructor. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Nesnak.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I have some questions for yourself and then also comments for yourself to hear, as well as some questions for our planning department. So I do concur with Councillor Kerr that 55% increase into this same area is definitely a deep intensification. So I'll just put that out there to start with. One concern that I'd like you to take back to your planner or your developer is block 42. I'm just wondering, so that's the end of that single dwelling family row that back onto Station Street, that row of homes there. You've got one block of, I think it's a duplex or a semi. To reconsider that corner because it does back onto a single family dwelling. So I'd like you to reconsider that and either spread out those homes along that stretch or convert that to a single family dwelling home. I don't see any parkland or any open space within that intense area either, so I'd like you to consider where we could maybe put some parkland space. That might be a way to break up the rows of townhouse that are in the middle there. Definitely looking, I know they're in the bottom corner, there is a parkland designation, but when that would be developed is questionable as well, because it's sort of on someone else's property. My concern is there's only one access to this neighborhood, and that's off Port Robinson Road at the moment. I assume that the folks who live along Summerside still own that property right back, that strip, so that roadway is not going to be accessible. I'm not sure, this might be a question for our planner, would tow car be opened at that point, or is that not their property either? That's still the other Through you, Mr. Mayor, a question for our
Yep.
planner.
Ms. Weens, are you prepared? Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. So this property, Tokar Lane is open to the edge of this property, but in order to get access to Tokar Lane, you need to have access onto the adjacent lands that are not within this plan of subdivision.
So then, through you, Mr. Mayor, that does have just one entrance off of Port Robinson Road at this time?
At this time, that's correct.
Okay, and so in future, looking down the road, when I see you've got the two roads going out to Summersides, how will the, let me get my directions correct, how will the turns off of this subdivision to the left work on Summersides? Will that be opened up, because right now the median covers that area?
Ms. Weens?
I might be
Yes,
ahead
Ms.
of ourselves here, but.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. So those streets would align with streets that are in the Park Place West subdivision. And so the median will be opened up, and there will be the ability to have full turning movements either right or left onto Summersides Boulevard, or potentially going straight through and carrying on to the north. So yes, the median at the moment is solid, but it will be opened up once we know where those intersections will be.
Thank you, that's great planning. And then through you, Mr. Mayor, just one more question for our planner. What is the purpose of having the 6.0 meter front yard?
So Mr. Mayor, through you, so this is something that's in the design guidelines for East Fonthill and having a maximum front yard setback. It ensures that the buildings are closer to the street. You have what we refer to as eyes on the street, and framing the public realm being the street and the sidewalk. So it provides for improved safety on the street and improved safety for people using the sidewalk, because people can readily see through the windows on the house, because they're close enough that they'd be able to see activity on the street. It frames the street edge, which has a psychological effect of slowing traffic down and making the streets safer, because as the buildings come closer to the street line, it forces drivers automatically to slow down. And so it's actually a traffic calming measure, is to encourage buildings to be kind of closer to the street and frame that street edge. So those are the two reasons why we like to have a maximum front yard setback.
Thank you. So I guess my question then now to the planner, through you, Mr. Mayor, is if you delete that 6.0 meter front yard, does that mean you want your homes closer to the street line or further back from the street line?
I think the intent is just to have flexibility for variety, but we can work with staff. If that's desirable, we can definitely work together.
Yeah. Because as again, I was out for my walk today and walking along one of the newer streets there, a car barely fits from the garage to the sidewalk edge, a van. So you need to have that spacing, can't go any shorter, because we do definitely need that's my opinion, so you can take that back to the developer. I don't know if you want to comment on that through you, Mr. Mayor. Barb, or no?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, through you. So we have a maximum setback to the front building face, but then we also typically have a setback also for the garage to ensure that you can get at least one car parked in the driveway in front of a garage. So you also want to see the garage set back from the front face of the house. And so there typically are requirements that the garage face is also set back, so that the front of the house is more prone. You set the garage back. It minimizes the impact of garages on the streetscape as well. And so, but you're quite right. We want to maintain a requirement that allows you to at least park a vehicle in the driveway in front of the garage.
Thank you. Few more.
Go ahead.
So Again, it's just that high density. What I've observed is that the lot widths of the single-family dwellings, the old lot width was between 13 meters and 14.3. The new ones are going to be 10.9 meters. So is the builder's intent to build smaller homes so that there's still green space around each home? That's my question.
Yes, together with a smaller lot, there will be a smaller home. All of the setbacks will be, you'll still see the normal side yard setbacks, front yard setbacks, and rear open space. It's just to meet that affordability factor by decreasing the size of the lot, servicing cost, and building cost altogether will translate into a more affordable housing.
So, well, as I said, just another comment to concur with Councillor Kerr. You know, we have the townhouses along Port Robinson Road and around the corner there, and, you know, they're still being listed at $900,000. So if you can build a $900,000 townhouse, you can build a $900,000 smaller single-family dwelling, in my opinion, as well. So just making that comment out there. And I couldn't read the drawing, but is the road width, is it 18 meters? Is that being maintained?
That's
or has
correct.
that been narrowed as well?
No, it has been maintained exactly the same as
thank you.
the existing approval.
Spacing between the townhouses, yeah, I think we need to ask the developer where the block townhouses are to increase that spacing between where the blocks start and stop. I guess that would be called side edge property, or I think side setback. And then, do you have any idea what the planner or what the developer is building in terms of size of structures? You said smaller, but do you have any details on that? Or like, are we going from a 2,500 square foot down to a 1,700 square foot or a 1,200 square foot?
I don't think the details on that are available yet.
Of course not. Okay. I think that's all for now, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nesnick. I'll turn to planning staff, either Ms. Weens or a member of your staff, to explain to the councillor and perhaps those here present about the parkland that is already being developed or set aside in that growth area.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So there is, in the East Fonthill secondary plan area, there are areas that have been identified for green space, park space, and there is going to be a large town park on the north side of Summersides Boulevard, just opposite these lands. That will probably be developed within the next two years, I expect. So there will be a neighborhood park in this area that is consistent with where it was cited in the secondary plan.
Excellent. So again, just to reiterate, so when you look at a subdivision as a whole, that is where you decide where parkland goes, not so much as each individual part of that subdivision.
So yes, Mr. Mayor, through you, the secondary plan, when it was laid out, it identified those areas for parkland spaces, and where kind of the higher density areas are is where you want to make the parkland close to and accessible to those higher density areas. So immediately opposite this site is the Park Place West subdivision, and then there's the Park Place South. And council will recall that those subdivisions have a number of medium density units in there, and then adjacent to that site is the park block. And it's I believe, I'm going to guess in terms of the size, but it's a decent size, so it'll function as a very good neighborhood park for this area.
Great, thank you for that clarification. I see Councillor Eckert. Okay, Councillor Eckert, you're up.
Thank you. Mine is just to piggyback on my fellow councillors' concerns. Just to the presenter and to the planning department, I get very concerned when I see applications come in like this and there's so many deletes. And, you know, there's a reason why, I'm assuming there's a reason why we have these specifications in there. And so I would be not happy at all. And I'm not happy when I see the number of deletes that come in for a subdivision. So I think that's something that we need to keep in mind going forward. And I'm sure the developer will work with planning, but you know, that's, if I can give any direction whatsoever, I think that's something that we need to keep our eye on. So that was my comment, not a question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Eckert. I'll go one more time. Any other comments on this application? Councilor Nesnick.
Thank you. Sorry, I forgot one fairly important thing, in my opinion. So I would agree with the town's concerns that they have raised as well. And then my other one is especially not in favor of the reducing the maximum lot coverage or the rear yard reduction. So that maximum lot coverage is really important that we keep and maintain that, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Without any further comments from council, I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to the presentation of resolutions. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand that committee receive report 2024-0071 for information as it pertains to file numbers 26 T1902/2021 and AM/01/2024, and that committee direct planning staff to prepare the recommendation report on this topic for council's consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. One last time, any other further comments or questions? Not seeing any. All those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson that committee receive the applicant's presentation for information. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, all those in favor? None opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Eckert that committee receive the written correspondence as listed on the agenda. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, again, all those in favor? See none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does bring us to item number 6, and I will now read the notice requirements into the record. Canberra Estates, 82/90 Canberra Road, file numbers 26T19-01-2024 and AM-02/2024. Draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment to create 6 residential building lots and rezone the property from the residential multiple 2 zone to the residential 2 and residential multiple 2 zones. The Planning Act requires under Section 34 that council must hold at least one public meeting for informing the public in respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. This public meeting has been called to satisfy this request. Notice of this meeting was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all persons who are listed as owners in the last revised assessment roll within 120 meters of the subject property on March 19th, 2024. The notice provided information on the property and the proposed draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. In addition to providing information, we will also receive any comments which any member of the public may wish to offer. If you wish to receive a copy of the notice of decision, please contact the clerk in writing as soon as possible. Contact information is available on the town's website and will be displayed on the last slide of the staff presentation to follow. If a person or public body would otherwise have the ability to appeal the decision of the Town of Pelham to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but they do not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Town of Pelham before the bylaw is passed, they are not entitled to appeal the decision. In closing, we stress that at this point, no decision has been made on the proposed amendment, and therefore any comments received will be considered by council. To you, Mr. Mayor, Shannon Laroque is our planner this evening.
Thank you. Ms. Laroque, you have the floor.
How's that?
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. This public meeting, or this portion of the public meeting, is for applications known as Canberra Estates, and the applications are for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment. The applications are for properties located at 82 to 90 Canberra Road, and they're located on the south side of Canberra Road and the north side of Daleview Drive. The draft plan of subdivision application would create 6 building lots, and the zoning bylaw amendment application requests a rezoning of the property from a residential multiple 2 zone to a site-specific residential 2 and residential multiple 2 zones. And for context, and I think a lot of people here are very familiar with this property or these properties tonight, but the historical home located at 90 Canberra Road, see if I can bring my cursor over, is in this location on this property. There's an existing single detached dwelling located at 82 Canberra Road with a garage in this location. And closer to Daleview, although it has a Canberra Road address, 86 Canberra Road is an existing fourplex, the southern portion of the property. This is the draft plan of subdivision. It proposes to create 4 building lots for single detached dwellings fronting on Canberra Road. Those would be located east of that historical home located at 90 Canberra Road. And it also proposes to create 2 lots fronting on Daleview. And this is the proposed site plan. This shows conceptual siting for those single detached dwellings, as well as the 90 Canberra Road dwelling in relation to the newly created lot line. It also shows the relocation of the parking for the 3 units in 90 Canberra Road to the front of the building. And in terms of the planning policy context for these applications, the provincial policy statement has these properties as being within a settlement area. And of course, that is where growth and development is supposed to be focused. A mix of housing types is encouraged and different densities, and also making efficient use of existing infrastructure, and of course, intensification and redevelopment. The property is within the delineated built-up area in the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and that's where a minimum of 50% of all new development is supposed to occur each year in the town. The Niagara Region's official plan designates this property as being within the delineated built-up area. Again, a range and mix of different densities, lot and unit sizes are encouraged, different housing types, and the goal is to meet people's needs throughout their life cycle. And 25% of all new residential units in the town of Pelham each year are to be located within the delineated built-up area. And there are also policies in the region's plan that encourage sustainability in design and construction methods. The town's official plan designates this property as being within the urban living area and the built boundary, and all types of residential uses are permitted in this designation, as well as, typical residential neighborhood uses, so maybe like a convenience store or a church, that type of use. And the town's zoning bylaw currently zones this property as residential multiple 2. That permits apartment dwellings and accessory uses to apartments. The requested zoning change would change the property to R2 in the location of those single detached lots, and of course with some site-specific regulations. And it would keep the RM2, the residential multiple 2 zone, on the 90 Canberra house, but also recognize that it is permitted to be used for the triplex that it's used for now. And these are the requested zoning regulations for the new single detached lots. There are no deletions being requested, so that's good news. Most of the things are compliant here. The change that is being requested is an increase in that maximum front yard setback. Normally, our zoning bylaw requires a 6-meter max from the road. In this case, they've requested 17 meters. And it's kind of, there's a unique circumstance here that's warranting why they're asking for that. And that's based on the existing streetscape and the residential uses around there, because it's an established streetscape and those houses around there typically do sit further back from the road. They wanted to be respectful of that, and so they've requested a larger setback. And the site-specific regulations being requested for the 90 Canberra house, the triplex dwelling, are of course to add the use, that it can be used for a triplex. And also to recognize that building location at 22.06 meters from the front lot line. And finally, for a minimum rear yard of 1.2 meters. And that house, because it is set pretty far back on the lot, it is very close to that lot line behind it. These applications were circulated for comments. We received conditions of approval from both Bell and Enbridge, and of course, no objections. From the region, they also had no objections. They did request some conditions of draft plan approval, and Town Public Works also provided some conditions of approval. And my public comment slide is blank because at the time I prepared this, we hadn't received comments, but we've received many since. So I'm just going to outline those verbally. From Steph, Ann, Peter, Connie, Esther, and Jim. They are concerned about the loss of affordable housing for 13 residents, including 6 seniors. They're also concerned about the displacement of members of the community, but also plants and animals on the site. And they provided a number of references to the town's official plan that they wanted us to consider. Joanne Lynn is concerned about gentrification in the neighborhood by forcing current residents out and replacing housing with more expensive housing. Margaret Johnson is concerned about the integrity of the heritage home at 90 Canberra Road. She feels that the proposed east side yard setback is too close and that the parking area in the front of the building and the loss of mature trees will detract from the appearance of the heritage home. She's concerned that the narrow lot will make it less usable as a triplex, and requests that one fewer lot be created along Canberra Road to leave a larger lot for that dwelling at 90 Canberra. And Titus is concerned about placement of the parking area in front of 90 Canberra Road and the loss of mature trees on that property. She feels the development is out of character with the neighborhood and is concerned about the loss of affordable housing. She believes the developer should scale down the development for fewer lots. Carolyn Doyle is concerned about the loss of trees and green space and the impact on heritage buildings and sites. She would like the development to honor the character of the town and also address affordability. And finally, from Deb, Mike, Max, and Chaz Sikos, they are concerned about the small setbacks from the 90 Canberra triplex. It makes access to the apartments on the east side of the building difficult, which could also be challenging for emergency services if access were required. They indicate that the side covered porches are not shown on the plan, and further, they would like consideration for a larger setback with it being a historical house. And a number of technical reports were provided with these applications. They include a planning justification report, a functional servicing report, a site servicing and grading plan, a tree inventory and preservation plan, and an accompanying tree preservation plan, a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment report as well. And those reports are available for viewing on the town's website at www.pelham.ca/Canberra Estates. And in conclusion, there are no decisions or recommendations being made tonight. Once all of the comments have been received from the public meeting and we've had a chance to have further conversation with the applicant, town staff will prepare a recommendation report for council's consideration at a later date. If anybody wishes to receive a notice on this application in the future, or these applications on the future, please ensure that you've either submitted comments or you've signed the sign-in sheet over here, and that way we can keep you informed. And if there are any questions or comments following tonight's meeting, please get in touch with me, Shannon LaRock, Senior Planner. My telephone number and email address are available on this slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Levac, for your presentation. I turn to the clerk.
Through Mr. Mayor, we do have the agent for this file available this evening, Mr. Ethan Lamont, and I do understand Mr. Lamont has a presentation.
Very good.
We would welcome him to the podium.
Mr. Lamont, you have the floor, and please remember to turn the microphone on.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, as well as neighbors and residents in attendance. Thank you for taking the time to attend this public meeting. My name is Ethan Lamont. I'm a planner with Upper Canada Consultants, representing the landowners for Canberra Estates draft plan of subdivision and the associated zoning bylaw amendment applications. So the purpose of this meeting is to provide the public and council with...
I don't know, I'm just gonna...
Oh, sorry.
You gotta talk, get real close
Yeah.
to it.
Okay. The purpose of this meeting is to provide the public and council with information on the proposed development and to obtain feedback. In order to accomplish this, I'm going to give a short presentation to provide an overview of the proposal and the applications, and then I'll be available for questions and feedback. Just bear with me for a second here. There we go. So getting into things, this slide shows an aerial view of the subject lands and their surrounding context. The property is located on the south side of Canberra Road between Hay Street and Highland Ave, or Highland Drive rather. You can see the subject lands outlined in red in this image. You can see the lands have frontage on Daleview Drive as well to the south. The lands are comprised of 3 parcels, which are addressed as 82 and 84 Canberra Road, 90 Canberra Road, and I have 88 Daleview Drive, but I understand from Shannon's presentation that's actually a Canberra Road address. In total, the lands comprise an area of about 0.5 hectares, or about 1 1/3 acres. The property furthest to the east on Canberra Road contains a single detached dwelling, which is addressed as 82 Canberra Road, as well as an accessory structure containing an additional dwelling unit, which is addressed as 84 Canberra Road. To the west of this property is a heritage listed dwelling addressed as 90 Canberra Road, known as the Wilson Hansler Sturzlinger House. It's believed this dwelling was constructed around the year 1860, and it's currently being used as a triplex. To the south of these properties is the parcel, which I have addressed as 88 Daleview Drive. This address contains a structure which is currently used as a fourplex. A gravel driveway connects between Canberra Road and Daleview Drive and contains a parking area utilized by both the 90 Canberra and Daleview structures. The surrounding area is made up almost exclusively of single detached dwellings. There's also a commercial area located to the west at the intersection of Canberra Road and Hay Street. The lands are designated as urban living area under the town's official plan. So this slide shows a conceptual site plan for the proposed development. The applications would facilitate the creation of 6 new single detached lots. 4 lots are proposed to have frontage on Canberra Road, and 2 lots are proposed to have frontage on Daleview Drive. The proposed lots range in area from 617 square meters to 1,132 square meters, or about 6,600 square feet to 12,000 square feet, and have frontages ranging from about to 12 to 15 meters, or about 40 to 50 feet. The heritage listed dwelling at 90 Canberra Road is proposed to be retained, while the other structures would require to be removed. In order to facilitate the proposed development, 2 Planning Act applications have been submitted, namely a draft plan of subdivision and a zoning bylaw amendment. The draft plan of subdivision is the mechanism through which the proposed lots are created and serviced. The zoning bylaw amendment application establishes the appropriate land use and built form permissions that regulate the development of the lots. So this slide, you can see the proposed draft plan of subdivision and the 6 proposed lots. And then moving on to the zoning bylaw amendment application. This image shows the existing property zoning. So as you can see, the property is zoned as residential multiple 2. This is the town's most dense zoning category and permits apartment buildings up to 15 meters in height. You'll notice that the 2 properties immediately west on Kemba Road also share this residential multiple 2 zoning, whereas all of the surrounding properties otherwise are zoned as residential 1 and residential 2, which permit lower density forms of housing, such as single detached and semi-detached dwellings. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment application seeks to rezone the proposed single detached lots as residential 2. A site-specific provision is also requested to permit an increased front yard setback. As Shannon mentioned, the existing streetscape has the houses set back further than what the current zoning maximum permits. So for that reason, we've asked to increase that provision. The standard, otherwise, all of the provisions of the R2 zoning, including the minimum frontage, lot area setbacks, and lot coverage are being maintained for those lots. The 90 Canberra Road property, which is not being developed through these applications, will remain zoned as residential multiple 2, with site-specific permission to maintain the existing use as a triplex, and a site-specific minimum rear yard setback provision is also requested to address a pinch point at the southeast corner of the dwelling. So in this table, you'll see the various studies and reports that were prepared in support of this development. So first, a stage 1 and 2 archaeological assessment, which was completed, which confirms that the property does not contain any archaeological resources. Next, a tree inventory and preservation plan was completed, which contains an inventory of the existing trees on the property and neighboring properties, and identifies tree-saving opportunities for the future development. And finally, a functional servicing and stormwater management report was submitted, which details how the proposed lots will be serviced and confirms that sufficient capacity exists in the municipal systems to support the proposed development. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I certainly welcome any questions and feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Lamont, for your presentation. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Mayor, that does bring us to the public portion. We do have a number of speakers this evening, and we will begin with the individuals that have pre-registered. Our first pre-registered speaker is Joanne Lynn, and Joanne is joining us via Zoom, so please allow us a moment to bring her into the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Good evening, Ms. Lynn. We do see you're in the meeting. You may proceed with your comments.
Hi. I'm not a current resident of that area, but I was for 11 years. I was directly across the street at 93 Canberra Road. I just have concerns about that were all mentioned in all the written comments already, so I don't really have anything else to add except for a poignant remark about somebody mentioned that the covered porches to the east side of 90 Canberra Road are not included on that diagram, and it does look quite restricted for that property. That's that beautiful heritage property. So again, just to summarize, my concern is maintaining the look of that beautiful neighborhood, not having everything too condensed and squished in, allowing for homes that are not necessarily going to be these big monster homes that don't fit the area, and then not squeezing in the 90 Canberra Road heritage home. And I think that's basically about it. So I just wanted to be here tonight to share that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next public speaker is Kelly Nicholson. She was supposed to join us via Zoom, but has not logged in. So I will ask if Kelly has joined us in person before we proceed. Okay, not seeing Kelly. Our next public speaker is Stephanie Dancer. And Stephanie, please just turn on the microphone before you proceed. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us tonight.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Everyone back there hear me? Okay, cool. Thank you, Council. This meeting is timely considering the release of Canada's 2023 budget. In Section 1.2, the budget boasts a $4 accelerator fund to help remove barriers and incentivize housing supply growth. The Rapid Housing Initiative is supplying $1.5 billion to create affordable homes, and we are to see the reallocation of funding from the National Co-Investment Fund's repair stream to boost construction of affordable homes. The budget also states that the government is committed to ensuring investor activity, especially among those who own a significant number of investment properties, like the property at 8290 Canberra, and is helping and not hindering housing affordability. Affordable housing, as per the 2024 Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation Rental Market Report, states that a house is considered affordable if rent is 30% or less of the person's total income before taxes. The average Canadian makes between $43,000 and $56,000 a year, and average rent in Niagara, per the aforementioned report, is $1,388. That's 39% of a renter's income on the low end. Only 56% of houses in Niagara are considered to be affordable to middle-income renters and renters who sought new units, which will actually be the renters that their homes are being torn down. When they seek new units, they see an increase of 25.7% more than the previous dwelling. With this in mind, please consider the following. We, the tenants of 82 to 90 Canberra Road, Fonthill, are asking you to reconsider the application for draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment received for the property located at the part of lots 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, and 13, registered plan 717, and part of the lot 167, geographic township of Thorold, now in the town of Pelham, regional municipality of Niagara. This property is affordable housing for 13 residents, 6 of which are seniors. We expect Pelham to uphold the official town plan to prioritize affordable housing, maintaining crucial affordable housing complexes like 82 to 90 Canberra Road. The official town plan states in A2.2.2 to prioritize residential development applications occurring in the urban areas where full municipal services and other community facilities exist, and to provide housing that is affordable to the community. The plan to build single-family homes rescinds Pelham's promise to the community. The residents of Pelham deserve affordable housing, access to green space, and established walking routes, like the routes at 82 to 90 Canberra. Collectively, we have lived in this location for over 17 years. Construction and/or demolition on and around this property will destroy its biodiverse and established plants and animals, and displace and established and loved members of this community. The world is in crisis, and recognizing the humanity of people around you is essential. You can make socially and ecologically appropriate changes that help us all for the better in the long run, and not just to line someone's pockets. Council, I ask you, when you consider this proposition, does it feel bad here? It should. It should feel wrong to build on every scrap of green space we have. It should feel wrong to change enjoyable spaces within the single-family homes. And it should feel wrong to put pressure on renters. And it should feel wrong to put seniors, some of our most vulnerable and precarious living situations. We implore you to think of all of our futures. Changes start at the local level. Please make the better choice. We have included sections of the town's official plan that we believe deserve careful consideration, which was mentioned before. Please consider this when weighing this decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight and for that presentation. Thank you. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Connie Croxley.
I have nothing to say. Stephanie said it all.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing to add. I'm one of the seniors, and I'm just about in tears here. Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Our next speaker is Annie and Peter Holpe, and they are joining us via Zoom. Please allow us a moment to bring them in.
Sometimes technology takes a while.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Ms. Holtby, we see that you have joined the meeting. If you'd like to unmute yourself and or turn on your camera. And Jody, is it possible to send an invitation?
Maybe a chat on mute. She might be talking, thinking.
Yes. Oh, perfect.
Sorry. I wasn't really planning on speaking because I knew Stephanie, I'd seen all the written material that she's been doing, and I felt that she was going to be present, and she spoke my mind as well. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. Speaking from Mexico, it's a little overheated here.
Okay.
So anyhow, I'm happy to hear what Stephanie came out with. I'd just like to as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next public speaker is Esther Hinlin, and I believe Esther is joining us in person.
I wasn't really prepared to speak. I'm one of the seniors. I'm 90 years old, and I asked the developer if he would find me an apartment, and he said no, but I can cohabitate. This really set me off. I've been a lone wolf for many years. I still drive, I go to exercise, and I want my property or my apartment to stay intact. And I also came with the idea that it's going to be a done deal. So change my mind.
Okay. Thank you. First of all, at 90 years old, you're an inspiration to all of us. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our next public speaker was Mr. Dave Cottingham, but I understand he's not joined us via Zoom, so I'll ask if he has come in person instead. Okay, not seeing Mr. Cottingham. We will move to Frank Brunette, and Frank is joining us via Zoom. We will now bring him to the meeting.
I'm not speaking, I just share. I'm here to listen.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for letting me know. And sorry, you're Mr. Brunette or Mr. Cottingham?
Brunette.
Brunette. Okay, thank you very much. And I believe we have, and excuse my pronunciation, but Ruha or Mary, did you wish to make comments? Oh. Okay, thank you. Our next public speaker is Mr. Graham Pett.
Good evening, Mr. Pett.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, town councilors, and town staff. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak tonight on behalf of Pelham Advocates for Trees and Habitat, otherwise known as PATH. Although not a codified requirement for development, we thank the Pelham Planning Department for requesting the tree inventory and preservation plan, and for the developer in cooperating with this requirement or request, and for the report provided. Overall, we think it's a pretty darn good report. It's thorough. While we at PATH are never pleased to see mature, healthy trees cut down, we realize intensification in urban areas requires some trade-offs. If these trade-offs can be minimized based on best science, and if healthy trees can be replaced at a minimum of 3 new trees for each mature tree lost, then we have a chance at least to possibly maintain our current tree canopy. 4 brief comments surrounding the tree inventory and preservation plan. I won't get into many of the weeds, but I certainly took note, or we did, of trees 37 and 36. They're located very close to the sidewalk, and they're slated for cutting down. One tree, a silver maple, is large and very healthy. It's rated as very healthy. No reason is given as to why this tree should be removed. From what I can see, it's not in a driveway. Wherever humanly possible, we should be saving these trees. They provide shade for pedestrians and their four-legged friends who often walk along these paths. They deflect the sun's rays from the hot black asphalt in our hot summers, increasingly getting hot, let alone their CO2 absorption capabilities, and least not their sheer beauty. 2, we are impressed to see the recommendations for involvement of a certified arborist on the job site. Should pruning of trees and or pruning of exposed roots be required to ensure that the recommended construction practices around excavation are adhered to. The only additional recommendation we would request is that the arborist, at the end of the program, complete a report for town planning or the site inspection, detailing that these activities were indeed carried out and carried out to their satisfaction, and reinforcing the plan for addressing the long-term survivability of trees that will be impacted as laid out, such as future watering, inspection, etc., etc. 3, almost half the mature trees in this development will be lost. While there is no legal requirement for the developer to replace these trees, we kindly ask the developer to do so, keeping in mind the town plants 3 trees for each mature tree lost. If there is not sufficient space within this development to plant these trees, then we would ask that they cooperate with the town and seek the town's advice as to where else they could plant trees to replace the canopy that is lost. 4, the provision of the TIP report and for tree replanting is precisely what PATH is asking the town to incorporate into the new official plan. This should not be a nice-to-know kind of thing, but it should be a mandatory requirement for all and any development in Pelham. If we are to maintain, let alone grow Pelham's tree canopy, then we must be more proactive than we have ever been. These times don't call for half measures. Pelham needs a private tree appreciation bylaw. Finally, PATH not only cares for trees, the habitat, and wildlife, we also care about people. We are extremely troubled that a long-standing apartment offering affordable rent will be demolished. Pelham is mandated to provide 25% for future growth via intensification. This is a pretty intensive apartment building when you hear the number of people that live there. Losing these rental units to be replaced by single-family housing is de-intensification, the opposite of what we should be doing in this day and age. Pelham has a dearth of rental accommodations. No developers are building, to my mind, or my knowledge, rental accommodations in Pelham. It just ain't happening. And let alone any rentals or any developments that could be considered affordable. Kicking these many tenants to the curb and telling them good luck, but there's no place for you in Pelham, that quite frankly borders on inhumane. We implore council to reject the demolition of this fourplex complex and to not approve a rezoning for those 2 building lots at Daleview. I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Mr. Pitt. I turn to the clerk.
Through Mr. Mayor, we have no more pre-registered members of the public. You may now wish to open up to the gallery.
Okay, so anyone here who isn't registered, I see a gentleman with his hand up. Please and come to the mic.
If you could please state your name for the record before proceeding, and the microphone is on.
And thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, everybody. I'm not a great speaker, but I just have a couple things I'd like to say. My name is Mike McCreel. I reside on 82 Cambro, and I speak on behalf of 84 Cambro and the people behind me in the other building, the lady here. The first off, trees. There's a 200-year-old tree that's behind me, right on the house that I rent. Very beautiful tree. Of course, it's going to have to be cut down because it's exactly where those buildings are going to go. It's not my tree, it's not my house. I do rent, and I do appreciate the landlord. He's a very nice man, and I've been there for 4 years. I am McCreel Piano Company. I've resided in Fawn Hill for 24 years as McCreel Piano Company. I service all the pianos here in Fawn Hill in the Niagara region and as Catholic School Board. It will be difficult for me to find another place, and I believe based on hearing this information, I know things have to go through, and it saddens me to see that I have to leave, but basically we're all being evicted out of these houses. So I have to find a new place, and so this older lady here, and also the people beside the dwelling, thank God that one's going to be kept, but those people have real concerns about the new development, even though their building isn't being torn down. I just like to stay there and pay my rent, and I'm sure they would like to too. But I was getting a little antsy and thinking what's going to happen and how this is going to all happen and when. I have to move my business. I have to find another place. It just, it may be difficult. And based on the N14, on being evicted and being, I believe the landlord has to supply moving expenses for all residents, if I'm not mistaken, and also supply an extra month of rent. Free rent. So if we have a 3-month notice to leave, I've paid my first and last, so my 3rd month is paid for. But there's supposed to be a 4th month that the owners have to pay each of the residents free of charge, or refund their money if they leave before 3 months. So those are the things. I'd rather stay. But if I'm being evicted, then so be it, but I'm just worried about finding another place. And I want to stay in Fawn Hill because I like to service and be a business here. And I pay my taxes and work as a business here in the Fawn Hill area. That's all I have to say. Yeah.
Great, thank you for taking the time to voice your concerns. Thank you. Anyone else here tonight? You, sir, you have the floor. So, please state your name.
My name is Ron McDonald, and I live on Daleview Crescent. I'm opposed to this for the simple reason is the highways around here can't handle it. They're congested. I mean, yesterday we had bumper-to-bumper traffic from the other east of Rice Road, and it's going to get worse. There's a huge development that's planned on Thorold Town Line Road. 1,543 apartments in 4 towers, 35 townhouses and quite a few single-family homes. These people are going to be traveling down Highway 20. And Welland has got 4 towers that are, I think, are going to go on Niagara Street. Same thing is going to happen. These people are going to come down to 406. Some of them are going to come down Highway 20 by way of Regional Road 24. And it's great for the province to turn around and say, yeah, we want high density, but they're doing absolutely nothing to improve roads. And I think it's time for the municipalities to say enough is enough, no more development until you start improving the roads. And that's all I got to say.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, and I'll say you're not too far off the mark. Thank you. To the clerk. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, is there anyone? No, there we go. Excellent.
Teacher.
Yep.
I'm going to address everybody.
Sorry, if you could actually use the microphone. We don't have you on.
Can you not hear me?
We don't have you on record on the video or on live stream if you're not using the microphone.
Having my back to you. Sorry. Thank you for taking the time. I'm not really
Could we have your name first? Maybe you already.
Lois Lees. I'm 125 Daleview Drive. I'm 3 houses from the project.
Okay, thank you.
My concern is not me. I'm just concerned that when I'm not there, which is going to be very shortly, my house will be sold. What's to prevent a developer coming in, taking my 90-foot frontage and dividing it into homes? I'm concerned about constantly rezoning. And that's what you have to do for this property, I understand. That just is another door that's slightly opened for somebody to step in and push it wide open. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for taking the time. There is a gentleman at the back. If, again, please state your name and please use the microphone.
My name's Jim. Good evening, council. Good evening, neighbors. I would just like to know what is the proposed timeline, if maybe the planner would know, of eviction.
First of all, before I'll go to Director of Planning, is that a suitable question?
Mr. Mayor, through you, certainly we don't know what the proposed timeline is for eviction. That's not any information we have. Certainly this is, application is the first step in the process, and if this is to get approved, it's draft plan approval, and then they have to clear their conditions, and that can take upwards to a year and a half before you get final approval. So I think, there is some time.
So ballpark
But
figure, you're saying 2 years maybe?
I can't give you a time frame. It's not something that I can give you, and it's not something that the town has any control over either. So, but if it were to be approved, you're looking at least a year and a half. But that decision too has yet to be made.
And then when does approval go through the council or the planning department?
So the draft plan approval would be coming back to council later, probably towards the end of June or in July. There would be a recommendation report that we have to take to council. We have a specified time frame in which we need to get reports to council with recommendations and a decision made. So it would be sometime this summer that there would be a decision made.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice evening.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Any other speakers? Go ahead, sir.
Just a small comment. Brick Properties oversees.
Sorry, could you come and speak into the microphone, please? Thank you. Sorry, it's only on record through the microphone. Thank you.
We can hear you, but it has to be on record.
Thank you.
Just a small comment. Brick Properties, Mike McCreel, oversees all the renters, and they seem to do a good job, and I believe we have to all go through them to get answers from, and it's always an email. You can't phone them, so it's always a talk, and they do a very good job responding back. That's all I have to say. Just Brick Properties is in charge of all the renters, and but that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. So you are thinking perhaps that question should be addressed to that company then?
Yeah, so.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Gary Tracy, 109 Delview Drive. Our property will be most impacted by the proposed development, but I'm not nearly concerned about the considerable impact on our resale value, on the nuisance of enduring the construction and so forth. I'm just appalled at the human cost that's going to be inflicted on the people who are renting in the properties adjacent to us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those words. Thank you. Anyone else wants to, please. Again, state your name, please.
Alice Cassidy. I live on 10 Daleview Crescent. And I'm just wondering about all the tenants that are living. Are any provisions being made for them when they have to move out?
Well, that isn't that wouldn't be the town's job.
Couldn't that be a question to the developer?
Well, and indeed it could be, yes.
Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, and
N14.
Yes. And I see someone has their hand out at the back. And before you start, if I may, so I will ask Ms. Weens, that comment will indeed be included with the with this report.
Mr. Mayor, through you, yeah, there certainly there are some legal obligations on behalf of the landowner when they evict people that they need to follow. And we can provide an outline to council on what those obligations are in our recommendation report.
Excellent. Thank you for that. To you, ma'am. First, your name, please.
I'm Margaret Johnson. I live at 98 Canberra.
Thank you.
I've listened to everybody's, and I agree with most of the things that have been said, but a thought occurs to me: infrastructure on Canberra Road. Our water pressure isn't great now. You add another 6 houses down there. Also, stormwater management. Are they going to have a plan for that? I just think you really need to look at the infrastructure on Canberra because it's really old and this guy's going to add to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Your comments will be recorded. Thank you. Any other resident want to make a presentation? Go once, twice, 3 times. I have to do that. Okay, I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have checked the clerk's email address. We have received no emails during this time. Therefore, you may close the public portion and move to committee input.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will turn to committee councilors for comments, questions on the presentations. Shelley, Council Nesna.
Yes, thank you. So I took a drive through the property. I think it was Tuesday, actually, or maybe Monday. And I was one of those bad kids that used to cut through from Daleview over to Canberra to get home quickly over on Highway 20 where I grew up. So, and it said no trespassing, and I did it anyway. So I am one of those, but oh well. We all survived. So my comments is that I'm just not quite convinced why we would have to, why the developer needs to create 2 new building lots on the Daleview side, and why they couldn't maintain that fourplex that's there in order to maintain the residents that are in that home right now. I went by, and it's been there for quite a long time, since I was a little girl. So I thought, oh, well, maybe it needs to be come down because it's dilapidated, it's fallen apart, it hasn't been cared for. But I was pleasantly surprised at the good condition that apartment building is still in, and it has been maintained by, I guess, the previous owner. So it is not a building that is looking horrible. It looks lovely. It's well kept. It's clean. Around the yards are clean. So I'm not sure why we couldn't ask the developer to try and maintain, because it's a funny that this 6th lot here with the L shaped out is a funny shaped lot. So I don't even know how a homeowner would get into that nice big backyard. Anyways, so why they couldn't maintain that and cut off that property and just have the entrance for that fourplex come in off Daleview and put the parking for them there. And then that's one comment. Okay, thank you. And then my other question was just with regards to the comments with the porches for the original old home on Canberra Road that's going to be maintained, and the property line is only 1.8 meters, I believe, from the property line of the new designated property, which does make it pretty tight. So my question is, I'm not sure whether it would be maybe to one of the residents or maybe the developer, if they would know, is that the only entrance for those homes is on that east side of that older home? Or is there an entrance from the west side too, that folks can access their apartments?
Through the chair, so if I'm understanding the question correctly, are you asking about the access for 90 Canberra currently or in the future?
Well, currently, because it's that older home, right? So currently, can they get in from the front and the back, from the east and the west sides of their apartments, or the triplex folks, or the front or the back?
Yeah, I believe there's access on the east side of the building as well as the front facing Canberra Road.
Yes, there is from the front for at least one. I don't know about all three, but okay. That was my,
Wait, if I may.
Yes, sorry.
I see we do have a resident wish to comment?
We've closed the vote.
Oh. I've been the rule.
You can't, sorry.
Okay. But back to Councillor.
Those were my only comments and questions for this time, at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Because we've closed the comments, I'm sorry, I can't.
I think it was just because she said, or the residents could answer.
Yeah, well, I was wrong.
No, that's okay. Newbie. Okay.
Okay, thank you. This side, Councillor Kerr?
Thank you. Having lived in Pelham a long, long time and familiar with the properties, but not quite in the same fashion as Councillor Niznik in being somewhat of a truant, trespassing and all the other things that seem to go along with this. But I won't even bring up what I did as a kid. Yeah, she became a teacher. I do have concerns with the side yards relative to the preservation of the building. Everything is in proportion when you try to take into account structures. It's even with new building for us, when we look at higher density development, we always look at decent setbacks on the side yards and that for new construction. This to me severely compromises the side yard of the heritage building. Secondarily, we're also putting all the parking towards the street, which kind of goes counterintuitive to what the town wants in terms of we really don't want parking lots in front of our houses. Predominantly, again, we looked at some applications and there was a push for access for side yard for vehicles that were going to be on site. So those are probably the first things that were of concern to me when I looked at this. I do have concern with the loss of tree canopy, as was brought up. My background is horticulture, environmental biology, among a number of things. I'm a tree guy. I've spent a lot of time advising people on things relative to trees, maintenance, survival, and others. And the loss of some extremely old, mature, healthy trees when you don't have an option is one thing. But when you can create options, I think it's more important to take advantage of trying to preserve that. The age-old saying is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time to plant it is today. 200-year-old trees, none of us will see. We'll never be around. I have, on where I grew up, have taken down some mature trees, but they were in a situation of decline. But I also planted 5 more trees in their place. A few people have questioned where I live has become a park just because I've gone a little bit berserk with evergreens and mixing up the plant species. But this is something that I concur that it's one of those items that I have concern that the dimensions of the lot and the way it's laid out for the heritage building are insufficient. Similarly, in looking at that you're increasing now the number of driveways that are going to be on Canberra Road for entry and exit for a number of new houses for each one of those lots, that right now you have 1, now you're going to be going up to 5, an increase. So there's always, that always comes to my mind as well. And I appreciate the comment about the other remaining dwellings relative to on Daleview become prime locations, because the general rule of thumb is density increases adjacent to lower density. In other words, you get the thin edge of the wedge of, let's say, townhouses in one spot, and then suddenly you can go to much higher density immediately adjacent to it, because under planning principles, it just works that way. And so I can foresee the Daleview people, maybe not in their lifetime, but in the future lifetime of other people, will suddenly see a dramatic change in what was a mature neighborhood into a very changed neighborhood. So those are, like I say, my biggest concern is that I think that the remaining lot for 90 Canberra is insufficient, that there needs to be more rear yard to it, more side yard to the east, most definitely, and that a tree plan, I guess moving mature trees up higher up the scale of the planning principle than being, well, I want to cram the house right in there. It's got to go, is maybe not the best way to approach it. And that's just the suggestion that I would pass along. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments, sir?
Yeah, that's certainly something we can take back with regards to the tree protection. We are early on in the planning process, so we don't actually know what the houses are going to look like or where they're sited. But as we work through the process and get some more of those details nailed down, that's definitely something that we can take a look at if there's opportunities to save more trees. So.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilor Olson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for the planner. The lot immediately west of the Heritage Building, what is that owned as now? Do you know what that is?
Is that Ms. Levac? Oh,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it is also zoned RM2.
oh, thank you.
And the exact status of the Heritage Building, it's described as heritage listed. Is that, what restrictions are placed on it because of that listing?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you, there are no restrictions on this property. It is not designated under the Ontario Heritage Act, but just because it's not designated doesn't mean it isn't of heritage significance. But it doesn't have any official designation. And we do not have a formal register or list of heritage buildings, so it doesn't have any status that way either. But it is an important building. It's an important building to the streetscape and the character of that area of Canberra.
Thank you. Councilor?
You know, certainly I think, you know, from staff's perspective, the protection of that building is an important consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wondered, so it's that's more of a description than a legal designation of any kind, I guess. So, and I
Yes,
agree with that. I
that's
mean, with something to be preserved. I still can't see how close that lot line is to those porches. It really does restrict the use of that building. And I was wondering about the properties on Daleview. It seems to me that those houses are awfully close to the street, and there's quite a bit of property there. Is there any possibility of replacing the triplex or the apartment residences with a building of some similar sort there? In that, I understand that there may be a different business plan that you have, and you have the right to that, but I just wondered if that was a possibility that could be considered.
Through the mayor to the question, that isn't something that we considered. The developer is proposing single detached lots. That's more or less what they're used to doing. So that's the reason that they're proposing single detached dwellings there as well.
Councilor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. Any other comments from any other members of council? Oh, Councilor Nesbitt.
Yes, thank you. Just one final comment with regards to the zoning as it is currently, right? So through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question to Ms. Ween. So it is designated RM2 right now. So really, like I think as residents, as you're concerned about, the properties being 5 properties, but because it is RM2, an apartment building of 5 stories would be able to go up there with little to no rezoning or no no coming to council, correct? Because it currently is zoned residential multiple.
To Ms. Weems.
Mr. Mayor, yes, through you, the property is currently zoned that would permit a small apartment building on that property, yes.
So is it, at the end of the day, it's which way do you want to go? Do you want to go singles or do you want to go apartments? But hopefully the developer will reconsider the Daleview one to maintain that, and then possibly move over the property line to the east of the heritage home, and they'll create 4 lots and put in 4 single dwelling homes there. That would be, kind of the best of both worlds, in my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor, thank you. Not seeing, Councillor Eckert.
I like to go last. My biggest concerns here are the destruction of the homes, residents of the people in the fourplex. I just really wish there was some way that we could avoid displacing people. I understand that there may be little or nothing this council can do in the long run. But everything inside me says that I can't stomach the thought of making a decision on council that's going to result in the destruction of that building. That's why we weren't forced into this job. We all ran for it, and I had the pleasure of going back there, and I don't know if anybody remembers, and I don't know if anybody in that building even voted for me, but I remember going back there and knocking on every door back there. I just think it's a shame that nothing can be done or changed to change that. The other comment that I had was, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know there is some improvements coming to Canberra Road in the near future. Grants have been received, et cetera. So for the lady at the back who talked about infrastructure, stormwater, sewers, and all that sort of thing, I think that is in the cards to be worked on shortly. So that may relieve some concern in that area. But I just hope going forward that the developer, I hate to say this, but I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to. I just hope the developer has some heart here and works well with everybody within the town, because it may be with not very much that we can do here as a council, and we're going to bear the brunt of that, and that's fine. We ran for our position and we're elected, but I just hope that something can be resolved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eckert. No need to comment. Thank you. Councillor Hildebrand.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on Councillor Eckert's comments. Being a resident here and knowing what's happening with the rental market and having some rentals myself, I fully understand the situation you're in. I have residents that are in apartment buildings, and what's happening is the owners are renovating the floor and moving the residents to another floor, and subsequently, when they have to move back, the rent is increased, and it's heartbreaking. And like Councillor Eckert and my fellow councillors say, as a council, I don't know if there's anything we can do about it. But if there is something, we definitely will take a look and see what's possible, because we all know what it's like. We all know what the economy's like, and being a senior, I'm sure most of them are on a fixed budget, and that's hard to live. And thank you so much for coming tonight and voicing your opinion to us as councilors, because we do have a heart and we do understand. Thank you.
and there's also an OLB. And I just want to remind residents that planning is out of our hands. We can make recommendations, we can talk to the developers, but by the bottom line is, if they don't like what we say, they go across to Toronto, and Toronto makes the decision for us. So I just want, but at the same time, the representative here is tonight. He's listening, he's heard the comments, has heard the same comments that this council has heard, and we can, we know that from past experience that they will take the comments from this public meeting back to the developer, and we have seen plans come back before council that have been reworked. So again, sir, you heard the residents tonight, and you heard council, and we just appreciate the fact that hopefully you will have more discussions with your employer. So thanks. Any other comments from any council member? If not, again, to the residents, thank you very much tonight for coming out, voicing your opinions, and giving further ideas to perhaps to the developer. And we'll again, thanks for coming out. Thank you. I will turn to the clerk.
Mr. Mayor, that brings us to the presentation of resolutions. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand that committee receive report 2024-82 for information as it pertains to file numbers 2016-19-01-2024. Do I allow them a moment?
Yeah,
maybe?
okay. We'll just wait a couple of minutes. But if you wait outside for about 2 minutes, we'll finish the meeting and I can come out. We have we just.
Be a neighbor of yours.
Oh, okay, well,
Center Street.
yeah, as a matter of fact, I recognize you now. Exactly, just give us 2 minutes, we'll close the meeting down. Thank you. To the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we have a motion put forth by Councillor Hildebrand that committee receive report 2024-82 for information as it pertains to file numbers 2016-19-01-2024 and AM-02-2024, and that committee direct planning staff to prepare the recommendation report on this topic for council's consideration. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments? Not seeing any. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion resolution passes.
Thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik that committee receive the applicant's presentation for information. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? See none opposed? Resolution passes.
Thank you. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Olson that committee receive the written correspondence as listed on the agenda, and that committee receive the verbal presentations made by the public. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comment? Not seeing any. All those in favor? None opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion put forth by Councillor Kerr that the special committee of the whole public meeting under the Planning Act be adjourned. To you, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor? None opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is 7:21 p.m. and you may now adjourn your meeting.
Okay, pardon me? Oh, we're done.